This is the Louie T Network. Hey, either you're outside or you're
in the lab room.
Draft zone.
Who else could it be? But me, your man. Louie T, welcome. You are in the lab room. Of course, I'm your host, Lou. Thank you for joining me. This is the 2015 NFL Draft Wrap-Up Series, where we aim to break down all 32 teams in the National Football League's 2015 NFL Draft using our baseball grading scale. Single, double, triple, home run. There are no strikeouts here in the Draft Wrap-Up Series. Don't want to discount any of these players before they get their chance in the National Football League. And we get a score. After we give each and every single pick a grade, we get a score. And we get an aggregate. Add bonuses in. After we get that aggregate score, we divide by the number of picks. That's how we end up with our final score and move on to the next team in the process that you, the viewers, in the You Pick format, select. Simply be the first to leave a comment in the comment section stating the team you'd like to see next, the phrase next, and the team you'd like to see next. Two simple components. The word next and the team you'd like to see next. I don't care how you phrase it, I don't care how you word it, as long as those two things are in the comment section and you're first, that team will be up next on the series. And because of you, the next team up is none other than the Super Bowl defending champion, New England Patriots. You call them what you want, cheaters, deflators, whatever. I call them winners. Let's see what they were able to do in the 2015 NFL Draft. This is something that if Bill Belichick had to do over, if you look at his legacy, the one thing he has not done well is draft. They've manipulated the draft beautifully, but they do not draft well when they actually select players. The core of this team, a lot of times when they win, are either from past administrations or guys that they went out and got in free agency. They've got a core nucleus of guys right now that are playing at a relatively high level that they've drafted and it's homegrown product. But if you look at the past when they started winning and they started on this historic run that Bill Belichick is on as one of the greatest coaches in NFL history, a lot of the guys he won with early on in that run were guys that he inherited from the Bill Parcells tenure. You're talking Lawyer Malloy, you're talking Ty Law, you're talking Willie McGinnis, you're talking Teddy Bruschi. All these guys were here before Bill Belichick got here. Got to give him credit for Tom Brady. They did select him in the 6th round. Don't think they really knew what they had when they got him, but they did do that anyhow. But you look at Corey Dillon, free agent acquisition, Randy Moss, free agent acquisition. Even though Randy Moss didn't win a Super Bowl, they were the best team and they were flirting with history. And so you look at Darrelle Revis as the last and latest hired gun by the New England Patriots to help them get over the top. This is a team that needs to draft better. The Patriots have done a better job of late of selecting players that they can build around. You look at Dante Hightower, you look at a guy that you just re-signed in the offseason in McCourty, and so is Chandler Jones, a guy that you can build around on the defensive side of the football. Nate Solder didn't play up to his normal standards last year, but he's one of the better tackles in the league. You drafted him. That's a homegrown product. There are some players on this team that the Patriots did draft that have been successful picks for them, but if you look at the history of the Patriots under Bill Belichick in the draft, they have not had a lot of success. Let's talk about this 2015 NFL Draft and see if they can have a better haul in 2015 with the guys that they selected. A lot of picks here. Let's see what the Patriots were able to do with it. We start in the 1st round, 32nd overall selection, the best pick in the draft. It means you won the Super Bowl. Malcolm Brown, defensive tackle out of Texas. I'm not going to break him down as I've already done that in the 101 series. However, this is a guy that I thought could and should go in the 1st round. To me, of all the nose tackles outside of Danny Shelton, I thought this was the guy that was most NFL ready and ready to have an impact in the National Football League. This is a guy that can play all up and down the defensive line, start at the point of attack, does a lot of things that as a team playing a 3-4 or a 4-3, you can utilize a lot of the skill sets that he brings to the table. This is a guy that is scheme diverse. He is just a terror to try to deal with at the line of scrimmage. in the run game, in the pass game. He's equally effective. I think he's a 3-down football player. You get rid of Vince Wilfork in the offseason and you finally part ways with a guy that has been a mainstay and a stalwart for this Patriots organization. You replace him with a guy that I think can come in and be an animal up front for you. If you can get Dominique easily a first-round selection from last year to finally be healthy and play the way he did at Florida, which saw you make him a first-round selection. You pair these two up together, they could be a nightmare for years to come in New England. In the first round, 32nd overall selection, defensive tackle out of Texas, Malcolm Brown, is a big-time deep shot to left field. Way back! It's hit hard! It's hit deep! Out of here! It's a home run for the New England Patriots. They started off the right way with a deep one. Home run, Malcolm Brown, first round. Patriots getting great value at the end of the first round. Move on to the second round. Pick number 64. Safety out of Stanford, Jordan Richards. His pros. He's a tough, hard-nosed player. You can see that on tape. He's very smart and instinctual. That's the next pro. And again, he went to Stanford, so it almost goes without saying he's a smart football player. But you see his instincts. There's a play against Notre Dame late in that game. It's a nasty day, wet, raining. Not a lot of points have been scored. I believe the score might actually be tied up at 10 at the time of this play. It's a deep throw into the end zone, back of the end zone. He's got a lot of ground to cover, but he reads the eyes of the quarterback, takes him straight to the football. He makes up about 15 to 20 yards of real estate, gets involved in the play. If he's not there, it's probably a touchdown in the back of the end zone. Instead, he gets there right on time, knocks the football away. Big play in that game at the time. He will tackle. He's a guy that will come up and get guys on the ground. I'll talk a little bit more about that and elaborate on his tackling ability a little bit later on, but he will tackle, will come up, will get guys on the ground. He'll make plays. Had 9 career interceptions at Stanford. Didn't see a lot of his playmaking ability on tape, but obviously 9 interceptions is it's not game-changing numbers, but it's still effective enough. It lets you know that he can see the ball, catch it, and make plays when he has opportunities to do so. He's a leader, and Bill Belichick has a big affinity for guys that are leaders on the field, that are locker room guys, that are glue guys. And we've seen this before with Bill Belichick. And I'll talk about a player that he reminds me of in a selection that Bill Belichick made about 2-3 years ago in the draft. This guy reminds me a lot of that player that is currently still on the Patriots roster. Durability, he's played in 54 career games at Stanford, so that tells you right there that this guy was on the field and he's always available and ready to lace him up and be on the field and be productive when his number is called. He gives you special teams value as well. So again, things that Bill Belichick values, a guy that can come in, do multiple things, be smart, be a leader, get guys lined up. These are all things that Bill Belichick takes into consideration when drafting football players. Cons. He scares me out in space. I've talked about him being a guy that can tackle, and he can and will get guys on the ground, but it's not always the cleanest, and there are a lot of shoestring tackles in there. He scares me out in space because I feel like there's the ability for him to miss at the next level where guys are a little bit more shiftier, a little bit more faster, and probably have a little bit more shakes to them. He scares me as a guy out in space that could potentially miss some of these explosive athletes at the next level. I'm not sure if he'll actually get guys on the ground consistently at the next level or not. He kind of scares me out in space. Not overly athletic. He's a guy that can run a little bit. I think he's a 4'6'5", 40 guy. So he's not a big time athlete, but he's not the worst either. He just doesn't strike me as a guy that will come down with extreme speed, have the closing speed that you're looking for, the lateral agility. I saw him miss a couple of tackles, overrun plays, couldn't put the brakes on. So he's not a guy that is overly athletic, but again, gets the job done a lot of times. And to me, he's not a game changer. He doesn't impact the game enough to me. And Daniel Jeremiah, I think he said it best. He said, look, this is a smart, instinctive football player, leader on the field, a guy that you want in your locker room, but the Patriots overdrafted him about 2 or 3 rounds too soon. to me, that's essentially how I felt watching tape on him. Like, this isn't a bad football player. He's just not a second round pick. But again, I can't tell the Patriots how they should feel about a player and when they should take him. That's why I hate the term reaching. That's something that the media makes up, and they tell you that this guy shouldn't have been drafted. Now, you can't tell a team when they should or shouldn't draft a player. I don't think another team would have taken Jordan Richards until the 4th or 5th round, but who am I to say that that wouldn't have occurred? Patriots saw a guy, they liked him, they identified him as a guy that they felt like could come in and help them, and so they took him in the 2nd round. You know who he reminds me of? A guy that the Patriots drafted about 2 or 3 years ago out of Rutgers named Duron Harmon. He reminds me a lot of him. I wasn't overly impressed with Duron Harmon on tape, but he's been a solid pro for the Patriots, and a lot of his attributes match that of Jordan Richards. In the 2nd round, 64th overall selection, safety out of Stanford. Jordan Richards, for me, is a double. I just felt like this was a guy you could have gotten 2 or 3 rounds down the road. He would have still been there. I didn't think this was a necessity in round 2, but again, this is the type of guy that Bill Belichick likes, and he fits the profile of a New England Patriot. And I think he's not only going to make this team, but he's going to be a guy that'll be on the field fairly quickly for the New England Patriots. Round 3 sees the Patriots select a very intriguing prospect, 97th overall selection, defensive end / outside linebacker out of Oklahoma, Geno Grissom. This is a guy that, when I watched tape on him, I was just somewhat baffled by some of the things I saw, and then I was intrigued by others. Let's jump into his pros. He's a chiseled 6'3", 262-pound linebacker, and that frame is just one that has you salivating because you see him and he looks like he's carved out of stone. The guy is cut, and he's the type of athlete that you're looking for. If you're drawing up an outside linebacker / defensive end, a hybrid guy, that's how you want him to look right there. Longer arms, big, muscular, cut, and ready to rock and roll, and that's essentially Geno Grissom to a T. Burst of explosion, that's the next pro. You see this guy, and every now and again, he will explode off the line of scrimmage and get into the backfield, whether it's going after the quarterback or going after the running back. You're like, wow, that was impressive. I actually put on some 2013 tape, and he's an interesting case. Here's the backstory on Geno Grissom. So he shows up at Oklahoma in his freshman season, and he shows up as a defensive end. They say, hey man, we've got a lot of defensive end. We're stacked at that position. Why don't you try out tight end? So after his freshman year, he moves to tight end in his sophomore season, and it's okay, but it's not really what they were expecting nor hoping. So they move him back to defensive end. The following year, they say, you know what? Your junior season, let's try you at linebacker. Or excuse me, they move him back to defensive end, and he actually has his best season of his collegiate career. He's a handful. Go turn on that Alabama tape from that Sugar Bowl, and he was just destructive in that game. And that's where you see the burst of explosion there in that game. He was very impressive. And then they say the next year, you know what? We've got some guys coming in that we like, that we think can play defensive end position. Gonna kind of switch up the scheme a little bit. How about you stand up as an outside linebacker? Let's try that on for size. So you're talking about a guy that was a defensive end, a tight end, and an outside linebacker, all in one collegiate career. And so because of that, he's a guy that really doesn't play with a lot of confidence, I feel. And so we'll talk about it a little bit later on, but he can get pressure on the quarterback, whether he's at defensive end or he's at outside linebacker. Those bursts of explosions that I talked about allow him to get into the backfield and make plays. He can stand up at the point of attack. I told you he's chiseled. He's got the frame to stand up at the point of attack and be a factor in the run game. He gets deflections. That's another pro for him. He's a longer guy, and he realizes that if I'm not getting to the quarterback, I might as well get my hands up and see if I can't impact the play that way. Had 8 deflections while at Oklahoma. He gets his hands on the football. That's something that I like. If you're not getting to the quarterback, find a way to be impactful. That's the way he does it, by getting his hands on the football. He actually deflected 2 passes and ended up picking 2 of them off. So again, he's a guy that not only deflects passes, but he's such an athlete, he can go and catch them if they're close enough and make something happen that way. He's a jack of many trades. And I talked about this basically already with his backstory. Tight end, defensive end, outside linebacker, all positions that he played at some point in his collegiate career at Oklahoma. So he's a jack of many trades. We go to his cons. He's a master of none of them, however. And that's the problem I have with Geno Grissom, is that because Oklahoma never allowed him to develop the type of skills that he needed to be adept at any one of those positions, because they kept shuffling him around, he hasn't had a chance to master defensive end, nor outside linebacker, nor the tight end position. So he's a guy that is somewhat lost at every single one of those positions. Takes us to our next con. Inconsistent defender / athlete. I told you about the burst of explosion that you see from him from time to time, but when you don't see that, he's not being productive on the football field. You see him, he's not making plays, he's not getting in the backfield, he's not getting to the quarterback. When he's explosive, when he knows what's going on, when he knows what he's doing, and he can just go out and play and be reactionary instead of thinking and being a step slow, he's not the same football player. When he's out there thinking, and again, when you switch positions as many times as he did, you think more so than you go out and actually play. And that's what slows him down a lot of times, and I think that's what makes him an inconsistent athlete. He's got robotic movement. If you ever watch him at the outside linebacker position, he's not as comfortable in space as you would like him to be. A lot of times, this is most apparent when he's in coverage, in zone coverage. He actually turns his back to the quarterback and runs to get into his position. If he's supposed to be in a cover 3 zone, in a hook zone, instead of him kind of shuffling back and watching the quarterback and getting into his zone drop, he turns his back literally to the quarterback, runs to his zone, and then turns back around. By that time, quarterback's already identified a target, got them the football. He has no clue what a football is. And so he's robotic. You see him, and he's not a guy that is fluid with his movement skills out of space. He's very robotic, and that's something that I think a lot stems from the fact that he's not comfortable at outside linebacker. When it's all said and done, he's a very intriguing prospect. So intriguing that Bill Belichick actually said at the Oklahoma Pro Day, he actually worked out at tight end, and Bill Belichick made the following comment. Don't know if we're going to move him to tight end. That's not necessarily why we drafted him. But if you ask me, he had the most impressive tight end workout we saw all draft process. And so that's a huge statement. I mean, they saw guys that have been playing tight end for 3-4 years at the collegiate level, and his tight end workout was more impressive than theirs. And he hasn't even played tight end since like 2012, and didn't even play it for a whole entire season. He's raw at the tight end position, but they saw a lot out of him in that one workout. So I don't know what Bill Belichick has in store for this kid. Just know that that's the type of versatility that Belichick loves. He can play multiple positions. He can play both sides of the football. He's a jack of all trades, master of none. We'll see what Bill Belichick does with him in the 3rd round. 97th overall selection, defensive end / outside linebacker / tight end out of Oklahoma, Geno Grissom. For me, is a double. There are too many question marks here. Don't know what Bill Belichick plans to do with this kid. We'll see what happens. He needs to get comfortable with a position, though. That's what I want to see from Geno Grissom, is someone just allowing this kid to just get comfortable doing one thing. Linebacker, defensive end, tight end, I don't care which one. Just allow him to be comfortable so he's less thinking, more doing, and he'll be fine as a football player. You go to the 4th round, 101st overall selection, defensive end out of Arkansas, Trey Flowers. This is a pick you got from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in the Logan Mankins deal. 6'2", 266-pound football player is the first pro. To me, he is a football player. He's a football player. This guy is a monster. I love watching Trey Flowers play football. Strong as an ox. That is his next pro. There aren't many times that he is defeated at the line of scrimmage. He's jacking guys up, putting them on skates. I love when defensive linemen get leverage, put guys up on skates, jack them up into the lap of the quarterback, and have them dancing like they're on hot coals. That's Trey Flowers in a nutshell. Great hand usage is the next pro. He wins at the line of scrimmage with a number of different things that he does, and one of those is his hand usage. He wins with his hands, whether it's defeating the offensive lineman's hands and knocking them off of his, or getting his hands up under the pads and using, which great leverage, another pro for him. So let's just go ahead and lump that in here while we're at it. He uses great leverage. I talked about him being able to get offensive linemen on skates and being able to get into the backfield. That's the way he does it. A lot of times is with great hand usage and being able to bull rush them by getting his hands up under their pads. He has an array of moves, and I want to lump these next two pros in together. He has an array of moves, and he's a savvy football player. And because of him being a very savvy football player, he does a number of things that allows him to excel and get to the quarterback and get in the backfield for a tackle for loss. He does so many things. You look at his sack numbers and you're not blown away by the amount of sacks he has, but go look at his tackle for loss, and that tells the story right there. This guy is very crafty. Crafty is a word I like to use the most when talking about Trey Flowers. He's savvy, he's crafty. He'll use a spin move, he'll use hand usage, he'll use a bull rush, he'll use quickness, he'll use whatever he needs to. There's one play, I love when linemen do the push, pull, tug, and use you for leverage. He gets the, and he's already put you on skates once, so you're aware of the bull rush. So he comes up, puts his hands on you, you're expecting the bull rush, so you anchor down, he grabs you, then pulls you and tugs you backwards, and you're off balance. He uses you to propel him into the backfield. Next thing you know, he's on top of your quarterback. The guy is very savvy and crafty. He knows how to get it done when he is in the trenches. He defeats blocks. He just finds a way to win. 7 times out of 10, Trey Flowers is going to win in the trenches. And you ask yourself, why is this guy repeatedly in the backfield, whether it's a run play or he's chasing the quarterback? He may not get the sack, but he will pressure the quarterback. I'd love to know how many pressures he had while at Arkansas, because he didn't always get the sack, but he was constantly flushing the quarterback out of the pocket. And because of the limited athleticism, and I'll talk about that a little bit later on, he wasn't always able to catch up to mobile quarterbacks, but he always made life a living hell for them while they were in the pocket. He plays on the other side of the line of scrimmage. That's the next pro for me. I just told you he defeats blocks. I told you that he's strong as an ox. I told you that he's a crafty football player. All of these things lends itself to this guy playing on the other side of the line of scrimmage. And that's how you end up with all the tackles for loss that he compiled while at Arkansas. When you play on the other side of the line of scrimmage, good things generally tend to happen for your football team. He's extremely versatile. He's a guy that can get up the field and rush the quarterback. He's a guy that can get in the backfield, make plays on the running back. He's a guy that they dropped into coverage often and used him as a linebacker on plays. So he's extremely versatile, and we know that's right up Bill Belichick's way. Anytime you talk about versatility, you're talking about things that Bill Belichick cherishes in his football players. You move on to his cons. I just told you he's an average athlete. That's one of the things that has stopped his numbers from being astronomical. I just told you, there are so many times where he gets in the backfield and he can't keep contained on the quarterback because he's not fast enough. Quarterback able to get outside of him. He can't catch up to him because he isn't as fast with his feet. And so that's one of the things that it'd be better if he could do it, but he's just limited athletically when you're talking about speed and explosiveness. But he uses so many different things. He's such a crafty athlete and football player, and he's very smart, that he's able to make up for not being as explosive off the snap and having elite closing speed to catch quarterbacks when they get outside the pocket. He doesn't have long arms. I told you, he's a 6'2" football player, so doesn't have long arms. Don't know how that will affect him at the next level, but he was dominant at the collegiate level. So to me, I don't know if that's going to be a big issue or not. We'll see if that's something that hinders him at the next level. But I tell you what, I am absolutely head over heels in love with Trey Flowers and his game. This guy is outstanding. And to me, in the 4th round, 101st overall selection, the defensive end / outside linebacker out of Arkansas, Trey Flowers for me is hit hard, hit deep, out of here. It's a home run for the New England Patriots is they do it again. First round home run, fourth round home run. And to me, they did some serious damage in the fourth round in this draft, did the New England Patriots. And they started it out the right way in the fourth round with Trey Flowers out of Arkansas. He is a home run. I expect this guy to be big time for the New England Patriots as his career takes off in the National Football League. 111th overall selection. We're still in the fourth round. Offensive guard out of Florida State, Trey Jackson is the next selection for the New England Patriots. They get this pick from the Cleveland Browns. His pros, big, 6'4", 330-pound man. This is a big guy, and he uses his weight and uses it well. Anchors beautifully. There wasn't one time I saw this guy bull rushed at all. In fact, when at Florida State, while Jameis Winston was in the pocket, there are several plays where you see the pocket forming and the pocket is collapsing from various areas, but it's never collapsing from the right tackle position. There was one play I was watching, and Jameis Winston takes like a 5-step drop, and he's surveying the field and he's got a little bit of time to throw. And I look at the pocket and I froze the footage and I stopped it. And I looked at the pocket, and the pocket's collapsing a little bit from the right tackle, pocket's collapsing a little bit from the left tackle and the left guard. And the center is kind of getting pushed back a little bit, pocket's kind of closing. And I look at the right guard, and he's like 3 yards, in front of everybody else. He's got his man. His man's not going anywhere. And Jameis Winston has about this much space to just step up and maneuver in the pocket because Trey Jackson's man is literally frozen at the line of scrimmage. It's amazing to see a guy just stonewall someone and they can't move. Almost like they were stuck in quicksand. That's the kind of effect he has. When he anchors down and he gets his hands on you, it's good night, nurse. And so, anchors beautifully. Heavy hands. He's got a set of hands on him that are like sandbags. I mean, he gets you and he hits you with those hands and it just stops you right in your tracks. And that allows him to anchor down. And once he gets his hands on you and he's able to punch you with those heavy hands, you're finished. You're not getting into play unless the quarterback does something to go get outside the pocket and really put you in a compromising position as an offensive lineman. Unless you do something like that, if you stay in your pocket and you're there's no way that you're getting away from Trey Jackson. It's just not happening. And so heavy hands, anchors beautifully, creates a new line of scrimmage. And in the run game, he was dominant at Florida State. He helped create lanes for all of their running backs. Florida State seems to go through a multitude of running backs every single year. And because of guys like Trey Jackson, they were able to be successful time in and time out. This guy gets it done. He creates a new line of scrimmage in the run game, erases the current line of scrimmage, and goes and creates a new one 3-4 yards up the field. He is dominant in the run game. He won just about every award you could win. I mean, Grammy, Emmy, you name it, he won it. I mean, he was first team All-American unanimously. You name it, he won the award. If it's given to an offensive lineman, he most likely got it. And so this guy was dominant at Florida State. Seals off defenders. And I love the way he uses his body to seal off a defender, give you as a running back the avenue to run, and gives them a clear path to which to run. They know exactly how to cut off of his block because he seals off the defender, gets in the way, and makes sure that they're not getting into play and having any kind of impact on the outcome of that particular play. Uses outstanding leverage. He's able to get under the pads of the defensive lineman and not allow them to get under his pads. So in effect, he's able to stonewall them and stop them from getting him back into the backfield and driving him back and getting into his chest. But also in the run game, he uses outstanding leverage to get under the pads of an alignment and use his lower body to drive them and push them up the field and move them out of the way. So again, Trey Jackson getting it done not only as a pass protector, but also in the run game. He's durable. 42 career starts at Florida State. So another one of these guys that you can trust to lace him up week in and week out and get it done for you at the NFL level if you go off of his past track record. You go on to his cons. He's limited athletically. He's not the most agile or athletic guy, but to me, the way that he plays as a phone booth brawler, the way that he gets up the field, he's pretty nimble for a guy his size, but he's not a guy that's running 30, 40 yards down the field on a screen. He can pull, and he did pull at Florida State, but he's not pulling for 25 yards down the field. He's going to get in the way of a guy, he's going to maul him, and then that's it. You used up your Trey Jackson block, you need to do the rest yourself. So he's limited athletically, and that takes us to our last con on him. Lateral quickness is challenged during well-timed stunts and twists. Those were the only times I really saw him beat to the inside, was when guys ran well-timed stunts and twists. You got to catch him off guard. The only way you're beating Trey Jackson to the inside is with quickness, and it's got to be extremely fast to catch him off guard. And there were a couple of times where guys ran twists and stunts inside, and he was blocking one guy and he passed him off, and the other guy would shoot in before he could get around, and then he would be in a vulnerable position. So if you can catch him off guard, if you've got elite quickness as a defensive tackle, you can beat Trey Jackson because of the limited athleticism, not able to laterally slide over quick enough to shield it off that defender. But there aren't many chinks in his armor. This is a really good football player, and you get him in the 4th round. It's amazing the value you can get at the guard position. We value tackles. Got to get them quick, got to get them fast. Act now, limited time offer while supplies last when it comes to tackles, but guards, these guys hang around for 4 and 5 rounds at a time, and a guy like Trey Jackson is exactly what the Patriots ordered. And I tell you what, that's one thing I can't say about Bill Belichick. Defensive line, offensive line, he keeps those positions stocked with good football players via the draft. In the 4th round, 111th overall selection, offensive guard out of Florida State, Trey Jackson for me is a triple into the corner. Patriots really did an awesome job of getting a guy that I think can be a dominant football player for the next decade. If he's in the right system, he's able to stay healthy, I don't see why this guy can't be a dominant football player for years to come. You go to the next 4th round pick, and this is actually the Patriots' 4th round pick. So I told you, Patriots did some serious damage in the 4th round. 131st overall selection, center out of Georgia Tech, Shaquille Mason, aka Shaq Mason. His pros: athletically gifted 310-pound offensive lineman. He's powerful in the run game. He has a powerful surge in the run game. That's the next pro for Shaquille Mason. You put on the tape of Georgia Tech, and anybody that watches Georgia Tech knows what they're about. You know they run the triple option, and that's a staple. Their offense is essentially the triple option, and that's a staple of what they do. A lot of fullback dives, a lot of options, a lot of triple options, a lot of different wrinkles, and they run the football a lot. And so you get to see a lot of what he brings to the table as a run blocker, and he is dominant. That's where he's going to make his hay in the National Football League. If he's going to put food on his table, it's going to be as a run blocker. And if he's going to take food off of your table, it's going to be because he is mauling you in the run game. Outstanding technique in the run game. So I told you that he is a powerful guy in the run game, has a powerful surge, creates a new line of scrimmage in the run game, where he has great technique to boot. So to match that ability to have a powerful surge in the run game, he not only has that surge that creates a new line of scrimmage and moves you off the football, but he also has great technique with it too. So even when he may get beat, because he's so technically sound, he's able to recover. It is a beautiful thing to watch when this guy gets down the field 3, 4, 5 yards head of steam. This guy is amazing down the field, and he is outstanding in the run game. Can get to the 2nd, 3rd level. There was one play I'm watching against NC State where he was dominant in the NC State game. And I'm watching this game, and he's going to block a guy, and he swim moves the guy. Like, he literally didn't block that guy because he realized this guy wasn't going to be able to get to the ball carrier. So instead of him blocking this guy, he swim moves him, actually swims him like he's a defender, and gets to the 3rd level to the safety and destroys him and paves the way for a huge gain on the play. This guy is outstanding when talking about him being a run blocker getting to the second and third level. He walls off defenders. That's the next pro. Again, gets in the run game, gets up the field, and seals off defenders, walls them off so they're not a factor in the play. To me, that's one of the biggest things you can do as an offensive lineman, because you can win the battle, not win the war. You can get to a guy, move him off the spot, but if you don't seal him off, you don't wall off that defender, they can still get in on the play and make an impact and stop the ball carrier from maximizing the amount of yardage that is there on a particular play. So to me, walling off defenders, sealing them off, and getting them completely out of the play is one of the biggest things. It's called finishing blocks, and he's great at doing that in the run game. He's an adequate pass protector. They didn't do a lot of passing at Georgia Tech with that triple option offense. They don't do a lot of passing, but when they did, he was effective. And he played guard, mind you, at Georgia Tech. He was not a center, and I'll talk about why he's projected as a center in a little while, but he played guard and he was adequate as a pass protector. When they did throw the football, when they dialed up a pass, he did his job and he did it to the best of his abilities. He's very aware as a football player, whether it's in the run game, pass game, he's very aware, passing off guys, picking up blitzers, knowing what's going on around him, knowing his surroundings. I love the fact that he's an aware football player, like that time I just told you where he swim moves the defensive end, knowing that he's not going to be able to get into the play, doesn't waste his time blocking him, and gets to the next defender that is the most imminent threat to the running back, picks him up, gets him out of the way, and allows the ball carrier to pick up another 15, 20 yards on the play. That is awareness, folks, and that is innate. You either have that or you don't, and this guy, Shaquille Mason, has that, and I love watching him play football. You go to his cons. Size limitations will make him a center at the next level. And I talked about him being a guard at Georgia Tech. You can get away with being 6'1" and 3/4, which is what he is. Essentially 6'2". I rounded that up to 6'2" because when you tell me a guy's 5'8" or he's 3/4, you're talking about a guy that's essentially the next inch. So he's essentially 6'2", 310 pounds, but at the next level, that's a little short for a guard, okay? And because he's that short, he has short limbs, short legs, short arms. That's going to be a problem at guard, definitely at tackle, which he's not a tackle, he was a guard. So you kick him inside the center where you can get away with that. Guys can be short and stubby at the center position and have it be fine. And I think that's what the Patriots see in him. He's a dominant run blocker, okay? And I think he can be even better as a pass protector down the road with a little bit more work. And because he hasn't played center and they work with him, center isn't as demanding a position as a blocker as much as it is mental, where you gotta set the protection, snap the football, get your head up, see who needs help. And depending on what kind of defense you're playing, if guys are lining up as a zero technique right over the center, then you might have your hands full, then he's going to have to earn his keep. But a lot of times, guys aren't lining up at the zero tech. They're a shade over, they're playing the 1 or they're playing the 3 technique. And so you're not really having to deal with guys lining up right over the center at the nose type of position. So I think this guy has a lot of potential at the next level. And because he's so dominant as a run blocker, I want to see if he can get away with that. His lower body is so powerful, and that's how he generates the movement in the run game. I want to see if he can still make this kind of impact at the next level. In the 4th round, 131st overall selection, Shaq Mason, a center out of Georgia Tech, for me, is a triple. I told you that the Patriots did some serious damage in the 4th round. Home run, triple, and triple in the 4th round. That is how you maximize extra picks in the NFL draft. You go to the 5th round, 166th overall selection, long snapper out of Navy, Joe Cardona. Now this is where the Patriots make me scratch my head, and every year they have picks like that. That 2nd round pick of Jordan Richards, that's a head scratcher. 5th round selection of a long snapper, that's a head scratcher. That's the equivalent of selecting a field goal kicker or a punter in the 4th round. Why are you doing this? I'm pretty sure Joe Cardona would have been around in the 6th round or the 7th round. To me, if you're going to pick any kind of specialist, punter, kicker, or a long snapper, because you need long snappers, don't discount that position. Right now, how many of you watching this video can name your long snapper? This is how much credit long snappers get. They don't get credit, and you shouldn't know your long snapper unless he's messing up, which long snappers, if they do their jobs, they go unnoticed. They're very unheralded. I know my long snapper, Nick Sundberg. Do you know yours? Tell you what, long snappers are very, very vital part of your football team. But they're not a big enough part for you to select one in the 5th round, okay? Nobody's fighting you over Joe Cardona out of Navy, okay? He would have been there in the 6th round. He would have been there in the 7th round. I venture to say, and I'm just taking a guess, I'm going out on a limb, I don't know this for a fact, but he could have went undrafted and you could have got him then. But because of Bill Belichick's ties to Navy, I think he felt some type of way. He goes out and gets Joe Cardona. And this is all I gotta say. I didn't watch tape on a guy that's a long snapper, okay? But I can tell you this, one GM said about him, he can play in the league as long as he wants. Guys like him are invaluable to your football team. That's a big, lofty statement from a GM in the NFC. Now, his cons, I can tell you this right now. He's 242 pounds and he's only 6'2". Now, long snappers are pretty small. You look at a long snapper, a lot of times these guys aren't over 270 and they're really small, but he's not a big tackler. Your long snapper, you'd like him to be a tackler. You'd like him to have a little bit of girth. That's a small long snapper, and he had to put on weight just to get to 242 pounds. So that could be a problem in itself. And then you look at another problem that he could potentially pose. Being from the Naval Academy, there is a potential for him to have to fulfill a commitment. Unless he gets exempt from it because he's in the NFL, he could be in a situation where he's got to go off on a 4 or 5 year tour and commit and do his Navy commitment. So that's something that looms over his head. That's another reason why you got to be careful when you're taking guys from the Naval Academy or the Air Force and things of that nature. But again, 5th round for a long snapper? What are we doing here? Come on now. I mean, really? That's how you feel? 5th round long snapper? Come on, man. In the 5th round, 166th overall selection, long snapper out of Navy, Joe Cardona for me is a single. What are we doing? 5th round long snapper? Are you kidding me? Really? Let's go on to the next pick. 6th round, 178th overall selection, outside linebacker out of Mississippi State, Matthew Wells. This is an intriguing athlete, man. Was it fun to watch him on tape or what? Let's talk about it. 6'2", 222-pound athlete. He can run. That's the next pro. 4'4", 4 foot. 4. Moses Malone on you. And so at 6'2", 222 pounds, running a 4'4", 40. What? What? That is an athlete for you if I've ever seen one. Unique skill set, okay? He's an outside linebacker. Now, yes, I said he was 222 pounds. You can get away with that at college, at the college level. Can you get away with that at the next level? I don't think so, but in the NFL, guys are getting smaller and smaller at the linebacker position, and there are places on the field for them. If you have the right package, you can get guys on the field at that size. The Jaguars did it last year with Telvin Smith, and they basically started him and had him on the field for whatever. And he was 215 pounds when he came into the National Football League. But this guy isn't Telvin Smith. He's something else. The Carolina Panthers selected Shaq Richardson in the 1st round out of Washington. And to me, he's a lot different from him. And that's a 225-pound linebacker. And so this is a guy right here that I look at and I say to myself, there's a place for you in the league. There are some things that those other guys that I just mentioned that are in the league, they can't do what he can do. And here it is. He can tackle, and Telvin Smith can tackle, and so can the Panthers' 1st round selection. He can tackle as well. He's comfortable in space, though. That to me is the biggest difference between a Telvin Smith and Shaq Thompson. I think I called him Shaq Richardson earlier. Shaq Thompson, the Carolina Panthers' 1st round selection. Shaq Thompson, for me, is a guy that I don't think is great out in space. I don't think he's a guy that's comfortable running down the field. This guy here, this kid, okay, Matthew Wells, running down the field stride for stride with Auburn's Duke Williams. If you follow college football, we're talking about a 6'2", 6'3", 215, 20-pound physical specimen running down the field with him stride for stride. Against Alabama, He's running down the field stride for stride in the end zone with Alabama receiver White. And so you're talking about running down the field stride for stride with receivers with athleticism and speed, and we're talking 25, 30, 40 yards down the field, locates the football and deflects it. I mean, these are outstanding plays. Now, Duke Williams was able to go up, climb the ladder, and catch it, but he was right there. It was airtight coverage. It was just a better play by a physical specimen at the receiver position. This guy, Matthew Wells, is an athletic freak, okay? And so his versatility is something that Bill Belichick, and that's his last pro. You know Bill Belichick was drooling over the prospects of getting his hands on a guy like this. You know who he reminds me of? Not necessarily in body stature, but just his ability to be an athletic freak. A guy that you drafted a couple years ago in Jamie Collins out of Southern Miss. Another one of these guys, big 6'4" linebacker, athletic freak, can run down the field with tight ends and even some guys in the slot. That's what he reminds me of. Another guy that, you know, Bill Belichick gets these awkward athletes that you're like, what is he gonna do? What part of the puzzle does he fit in? You get him and they change the game, and that's what Jamie Collins did. He came in and helped the Patriots change the game because he's a guy that can do a number of things on the football field that most linebackers simply can't do. And that's another guy like that is Matthew Wells. Now, I don't know if he's going to make a transition to safety, because I think he could do it, or if they're going to keep him at linebacker and bring him in sub packages and let him run around with slot guys and tight ends. And he did it well at Mississippi State, that's for sure. You move on to his cons. He's a classic tweener. 6'2", 222 pounds, puts you right between a safety and a linebacker. To me, I think he could actually make the transition to safety and be a damn good one, but let's see what the Patriots decide to do with this kid. Gets stuck on blocks sometimes. That's something that has me a little wary of him. And last thing, let's go ahead and couple these last two together. Gets stuck on blocks, not as comfortable around the line of scrimmage as he is away from the line of scrimmage. At Mississippi State, they played him away from the line of scrimmage quite often because he was so comfortable out in space, running with tight ends, running with slot receivers, running with guys in general. He would be 30, 40 yards off the ball, deflecting passes. This guy is a freak. And so I'm interested. I am very fascinated with what the Patriots have in store for Matthew Wells if he makes this team. This guy has a unique skill set that I feel like Bill Belichick will have fun masterminding if he is able to show what he showed me on tape and what he showed to get the Patriots to spend a 6th-round pick on him in the 2015 NFL Draft in the 6th round, 178th overall selection, outside linebacker out of Mississippi State. Matthew Wells, for me, is a double. I am enamored with his skill set, but again, he's a tweener. He's not physical. What will the Patriots do with him? I am very anxious to see what the Patriots have in store for him at the next level. You go to their next 6th round selection, 202nd overall tight end out of Arkansas, A.J. Derby. His pro, 6'4", 255-pound tight end. He will mix it up in the run game. That's the next pro. He's a guy at the point of attack, will get in there, will block, will do all of the dirty work, not afraid to stick his nose in there. Is it always textbook? No, but he is willing and able to be physical, get his hands dirty in the run game, and you'll understand why that is such a big coup for a guy like A.J. Derby a little bit later on when I explain a little bit of his background to you. He has enough athleticism to stretch the field. He's a 4.72 athlete, and there's one route that he runs. I forget the team they're playing against, but he runs an out and up. I want to say they're playing against Auburn, and it's a beautiful out and up route. He didn't sell the out a lot, but he sold it enough to bend that linebacker, widen him up, and was able to get up the field. And the quarterback put it up in the air. He went up and got it, got down before he took a shot. Touchdown, and that just shows you a little bit of what this guy can bring to the table. I think with a little bit more work as a tight end, this guy could be a difference maker in an offense. In a 2 tight end set, this guy could be, you know, another option to throw the football to. He can catch the football. I just told you that. Essentially, he has good enough hands to get the job done, and so he also offers special teams value. And to me, there's upside, and you know, upside is a funny word because Upside is another way of saying raw. Now, upside is the positive version of raw. You take that and you flip it on his head and you say the guy's raw, then that's a negative. This guy has upside, and I think, and I'm gonna talk about his upside and what it means a little bit later on as well, but I think with more work, and here's why he has upside. He's versatile. That's the last pro for AJ Derby. Here's why he's versatile. Here's his background. Starts out at Iowa as a backup quarterback. Comes on to Iowa. He's a highly recruited quarterback, but he's like third string. So the coach says, hey, man, you're an impressive athlete. You're a big kid. Why don't you try linebacker out for sacks, okay? And so he moves to linebacker, plays 3 games, says, coach, I'm nobody's linebacker. Leaves the Iowa program, goes to a junior college, plays quarterback there. Plays there for a year, comes back to Division I football, walks on at the University of Arkansas, where he's a backup quarterback again. Coach looks at him and says, hey, look, I like your skill set, son. You're an athlete. Why don't you try tight end? So he moves from backup quarterback to this time tight end and actually sticks at the position, but he's still raw at that position, which takes us to our cons for AJ Derby. No set position. Just told you, the man played quarterback, linebacker, and tight end at 3 different schools while in college. So he never really got a chance to master any of those positions, and he's currently a tight end. But you know, that versatility will serve him well with Bill Belichick if he's able to make this roster. I can easily see a trick play where this guy is throwing a pass down the road. Belichick loves guys that are versatile, and AJ Derby is exactly that. He's raw. Remember I talked about the upside? He hasn't had a lot of time at tight end, so he's raw at the position. He's got upside because if he's able to develop and mature at the tight end position, he might be a much better football player because of it. But he's raw. He's got a lot to learn that could stop him from making this team, that could stop him from excelling at the next level because he hasn't played the position long enough. And I don't know if he'll have enough reps to learn and be able to mature as a tight end and be able to put enough on tape to make this Patriots team or anybody else's team for that matter. His frame might be maxed out. I don't know if he can get any bigger. Remember, we're talking about a guy that was a quarterback at one point. For him to be 252 pounds, I don't know if he can get much bigger than he already is, which may hinder him in his attempts to be stout at the point of attack as a run blocker. I thought he did a magnificent job of putting his body out there and competing in the run game, and I thought he did outstanding in getting in the way and being a blocker in the run game. But at the next level, guys might be able to take advantage of him because he is so raw. But in the 6th round, 202nd overall selection, tight end out of Arkansas, AJ Derby for me is a double. I like his skill set. I think that there is some potential here. He just needs to be coached up, and time is his best friend. He needs time to develop. Will he have that time is the question that you got to ask yourself if you are the New England Patriots. 2 7th round selections for the Patriots, the first of which is 247th overall cornerback out of Marshall, Darryl Roberts. He's a longer 5'11" cornerback. And you know, in the league now, long corners are in vogue. And he's basically 6 feet. You look at him, he's got long limbs, able to run. And so that bodes well for him in trying to make this Patriots football team as a 7th round selection. This is where he piqued the interest of NFL teams, including the Patriots, and this is how he got drafted. This was a guy that was snubbed by all of the extracurricular games and activities. He wasn't invited to the combine, wasn't invited to the Senior Bowl, East-West Shrine game, none of that. So he was snubbed and he had a chip on his shoulder. He's a workout warrior. That's the next pro. That's what got him drafted. Listen to these numbers. 4.38 40. So the guy is blazing fast. 11.1 broad jump. 39-inch vertical leap. And 23 reps of 2 1/4 is phenomenal. And all of these numbers would have been the best, with the exception of his 40 time, would have been the best, would have been top 5 in his position at cornerback at the combine. So he's a workout warrior, and that got him some attention. So did his play on the field. He will tackle. That's the next pro. He's a guy that's not afraid. I actually saw him force a fumble, come up, tackle a big guy, get the football out. So he will tackle. Looks for the football. And again, teams shied away from him at Marshall because he was the guy at the cornerback position. They took their chances going after the other corner because he was such a handful to deal with while he was at Marshall. 17 PBUs in 2014 alone. PBUs, pass breakups. He gets his hands on the football, and the only way you're able to do that is if you look for the football, and I already told you he does that. You also look at his durability. 42 starts at Marshall is a guy that laces it up every single weekend. So you go to his cons. His size is problematic. Most likely going to be a problem for him at the next level. His size, there's a receiver, Brown, in the bowl game against Northern Illinois. And there was one route that he ran, and this is something that NFL receivers do all the time. At the stem of their route, they use their hands for separation. He literally threw this guy, because I'm gonna say one thing about Darryl Roberts. He's an in-your-face corner. He comes up, he challenges you at the line of scrimmage, and he's in your face, snap in, snap out. I love that about him because it sets the tempo and it allows him to be physical because he's got the speed. When you've got the physical capabilities that he has, I talked about the strength with the 23 reps of 2 1/4. When you've got the speed, 4.38, 40 to run, you can get in a guy's face, and if you miss the jam at the line of scrimmage, you've got the makeup speed and the ability to get back into play, so why not come up and be aggressive? And he does that. But this receiver was bigger than him, about 6'1", 6'2", bigger guy at about 220 pounds, and he just came up and he just pushed him, got him out of the way, ran a slant inside, picked up 39 yards on him. And so that's something that he's gonna struggle with at the next level. Big physical receivers are going to be problematic for him at the next level. He needs to make more plays though. I told you he had 17 pass breakups. How about picking some of those off? Make these quarterbacks pay for coming your way. 17 pass breakups, that's excellent. How about you turn some of those into interceptions though? Only 5 career interceptions, so I'd love to see him actually catch the football, make quarterbacks pay for trying to come his way instead of knocking the football away. Make more plays. To me, in the 7th round, to get a guy with that kind of skill set, with those attributes, and I think he's actually a really good football player, and he's aggressive, and he has the mentality that you're looking for from a corner. He's aggressive, he's confident in his abilities, and he's got the actual characteristics and attributes to back up that confidence. You get that kind of athlete in the 7th round, I'm intrigued enough to give Darryl Roberts a double in the 7th round. You finish up the Patriots draft in the 7th round, 253rd overall selection, outside linebacker out of Alabama, Xavier Dixon. Pros, 6'3", 260-pound outside linebacker / defensive end. Doesn't give up a lot of ground at the line of scrimmage. Now that's different than being stopped at the point of attack. He just doesn't move. I'm not sure if he started the point of attack or if he's just a big guy and hard to move, but he didn't move a lot at the line of scrimmage. 2014 was his best season. He had 9 sacks, so that's encouraging when you see a guy have his best season when he gets the most playing time he's had in his college career, and the light bulb seems to have come on for him, and he performs in his senior season. That's usually a good indication of a guy that's starting to get it, and for him, 2014 was that season, so that's a good thing. But you go to his cons. To me, he's unevenly proportioned. He's top heavy, doesn't have a lot of mass in his lower body, and that's why, to me, he's not an explosive athlete. Go to his next con, he's sluggish. Even though he's a 4'7", 440 guy, which isn't the worst, isn't the best, but he doesn't look like a 4'7", 440 athlete. He looks more like a 4'9" guy. Very sluggish on tape. I didn't see any explosion. I didn't see anything. I didn't even see any of his 9 sacks, okay? I was searching for a sack to see how he was getting his pressure, because 9 sacks is a lot for a guy that doesn't seem to have an explosive bone in his body. So I'm at a loss as to where he got the 9 sacks, how he got the 9 sacks. Maybe it's just because he played on a talented Alabama defense, but one thing's for sure, this guy isn't explosive, doesn't have a lot of athleticism. He's uncomfortable in space as well. For an outside linebacker, I saw him drop a couple of times. He's just not comfortable doing that. His most comfortable position was with his hand in the dirt as a defensive end, getting up the field and trying to make something happen on the other side of the line of scrimmage. For me, not impressed. Usually, I'm not impressed with Alabama defenders. Some guys come into the league and they excel, others don't. He doesn't seem like one that's going to do much of anything if he even makes this Patriots football team. In the 7th round, 253rd selection, Alabama defensive end/outside linebacker Xavier Dixon for me is a single to wrap up the Patriots draft. 11 selections, a lot here, a very unique draft for the Patriots, to say the least. It's what the Patriots do. They think outside the box. They take a safety that I think they might have taken 3 rounds too early. They take a long snapper in the 5th round, but they have a phenomenal 4th round to offset those head-scratching maneuvers. And so let's talk about their draft, tally up their points, and see what they were able to accomplish in the 2015 NFL Draft Wrap-Up Series. 2 home runs, 1 in the 1st round, 1 in the 4th round. And so got 2 4s there, 2 triples. And so that gives you a total of 14. You get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 doubles. So you get 3 additional doubles because of those 5 doubles. Anytime you get to 3, you get a bonus. Any double or any other thereafter nets you another bonus. And so 8 doubles in all for the Patriots. And then they finish up the draft with a couple of singles. You tally that up, 4 is 8, plus 3, 11, another 3, 14. You add 8 doubles, that's 16, plus the 14 gives you 30, 2 singles, 32, divide that by 11 selections, it gives you a 2.9 for the New England Patriots, ties them for 3rd in the draft wrap-up process with 2 other football teams. So, hey, that's a pretty good draft for the Super Bowl defending champion New England Patriots. A lot of intrigue here, man. I am so intrigued. What are they going to do with Geno Grissom? What are they going to do with a guy like Matthew Wells? Is A.J. Derby going to be matured? Are they going to allow him to have the time that he needs to become a solid tight end? Because I think all the components are there. What about Darryl Roberts? Are his physical gifts enough to help him make this roster? Are they going to get the most out of Trey Flowers, who I think is an absolute stud and might be the best player in this draft class when it's all said and done? These are all questions and more that I have for this Patriots draft. We'll see what happens. It's going to do it for the New England Patriots in their 2015 NFL Draft Wrap-Up. If it happens in the National Football League, whether big or small, we cover it all here in the lab room. Come back and join me as I continue to break down anything and everything in the National Football League. You know what I'm about to ask, but as always, I'm going to ask it anyway. Who's next? There's plenty more where that came from. While you're here, subscribe to the channel. If you want more Louie T, be sure to follow me on Twitter at @InTheLabRoom, or you can like the Facebook page at In the Lab Room. That's In the Lab Room on Facebook and at In the Lab Room on Twitter. Don't forget, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so.
Mm-hmm.